On the 10th day of my Cold War with Cruz, he posted a photo on Facebook of him kissing his first love. I silently submitted my study abroad application. At the graduation party, he casually held his first love's hand, looking into her eyes filled with affection. A friend hesitated. "What about Christina? She loves you so much, and you two are going to get married." Cruz tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Just a substitute, after all. Now that Selena is back, it's time to change the marriage partner." But when I returned the engagement ring and completely disappeared from his world, he broke down and turned everything upside down to find me. Later, when I saw him crying as I held my husband's hand while choosing baby supplies, he said, "Christina, will you come back with me?" The 10th day of my Cold War with Cruz happened to be our 3rd anniversary. I saw a new post on his Facebook, a photo of him and his first love Selena kissing passionately. When I noticed Cruz looking at Selena with affectionate eyes, the heavy stone in my heart suddenly fell. I silently submitted my study abroad application. Looking at the 4 big characters "submission successful," my heart is filled with a myriad of emotions. At that moment, my friend brought over the custom cake. She placed her hand on my forehead and found that the fever had subsided, letting out a sigh of relief. I saw the study abroad application I submitted again. A bit surprised, "Did your Cruz really agree to go abroad with you? I told you, you two are so in love. You're getting married soon." I shook my head. In the surprised gaze of my friend, I calmly said, "I only submitted my own, I went abroad by myself." My friend was taken aback, looking at me as if I were a stranger. It's no wonder my friends look at me with that kind of gaze. After all, in these 3 years of dating Cruz, I have prioritized him in everything. I would never engage in anything he was unwilling to do. Looking at the cake in my friend's hands, I thought for a moment and then took the cake. Cruz and I should have an outcome now. Seeing that I was about to go out, my friend hesitated to speak. Finally, he sighed and said, "Wear an extra layer, you just recovered from a cold. Don't make yourself sick again." I smiled and nodded. I wrapped my coat tighter and carried the cake towards Cruz's dormitory building. As I was halfway there, a child ran over, laughing, and bumped into my arms. Caught off guard, the cake in my hands fell to the ground, tumbling out of the box. The child paused for a moment, then made a funny face at me before diving into the crowd. I looked at the shattered cake and suddenly felt a bit wronged. Instinctively, I took out my phone, wanting to call Cruz. But in the constantly moving crowd, I saw Cruz. And the girl next to him wearing a white long dress. The girl's appearance is somewhat similar to mine, but her facial features are softer than mine. At a glance, I recognized that this girl was Selena, the first love hidden in Cruz's heart. She held an ice cream, not knowing what Cruz had said to her, and Selena's cheeks flushed with a hint of red. She shyly lowered her head. Cruz gently reached out his hand, tucking her messy hair behind her ear. Then he softly placed a kiss on her forehead. In that instant, my entire world fell silent. I silently watched as Cruz and Selena disappeared into the crowd, a pain like needles spreading in my heart. My tears finally fell, dripping into the cake on the ground. In the astonished gaze of others, I cried while tremblingly wrapping the cake into the box. Someone couldn't stand it anymore and said to me, "Classmate, this cake is ruined and can't be eaten. If you really like it, just buy another one." Seeing Cruz again was at the graduation party a few days later. I stood at the door of the private room, watching him hold Selena, his face full of tenderness, his eyes filled with love as he looked at her. His friends gathered around, praising them as a perfect match, a natural pair. The smile on Cruz's face became increasingly genuine. After a while, Selena got up to go to the bathroom to touch up her makeup. I quickly turned around, pretending to be a passerby. In the private room, after Selena left, a friend hesitantly asked Cruz, "Selena is back, what about Christina? She loves you so much, weren't you both going to get married?" Cruz tugged at the corner of his mouth and said, "What love or anything? It's just a substitute. Haven't you noticed how much Christina and Selena look alike? Since Selena is back, the marriage partner should be changed." Hearing Cruz's words, my whole body felt as if it were submerged in cold water, so cold it made me shiver. I clenched my fists tightly, the pain in my palms bringing me a bit of clarity. Amid the laughter of friends, another friend asked, "Is Christina coming to the party too?" "Cruz, you really can." Surrounded by so many, "But aren't you afraid Christina will see Selena and cause a scene?" Cruz scolded him with a smile for a few moments. Then, with a serious expression, he said, "Don't call Selena like that, show some respect. Call her sister-in-law. Christina didn't dare to make a fuss, she loved me so much. In the 3 years of our relationship, she always put me first. 10 days ago, Stanford University sent her an acceptance letter, but she gave it up for me. Originally, she wanted me to go with her, and I also planned to go with her, so I could be a little closer to Selena. I didn't expect Selena to return to the country and come back to find me." Speaking of this, Cruz's handsome face dimmed a little. "And my heart has become numb from the pain." I suddenly remembered 10 days ago, when Cruz angrily accused me, saying that I never considered him, that I never discussed anything with him. Even if I kept explaining, telling him that this was arranged by my family, he still left me alone on the empty street. It turned out that these were just his reasons for leaving me. He knew everything, while I, like a fool, still thought he was really angry, even going to find him quietly, despite being seriously ill. I watched Cruz surrounded by friends, and when he mentioned Selena, the tenderness and affection in his eyes were something I had never possessed. Cruz took a puff of smoke. His voice was deep. "This time, I won't let go of Selena's hand again. Someone call Christina and tell her not to come, just say I'm busy, and ask her to go back and make soup for me. Christina cares about me, she will definitely do it. Also, don't mention Christina in front of Selena, I don't want Selena to misunderstand." Seeing such a strange Cruz, I suddenly thought of 3 years ago. The first time I met Cruz, he had a youthful face. Blushing, he walked up to me, nervously pinching the hem of his clothes, and asked, "Classmate, can we exchange contact information?" Amidst the teasing of my friends, I also blushed. Later, under Cruz's deliberate pursuit, I gradually developed feelings for this gentle boy. Cruz comes from an average family, and my parents are somewhat opposed to me being with Cruz. After Cruz learned about this, he wasn't angry. Instead, he comforted me by saying, "Uncle and Aunt also hope you can live well, they are doing it for your own good. After all, I don't have much ability to take good care of you right now." He treats me well to win my parents' approval. No matter if it's windy or rainy, he always prepares breakfast for me and works multiple part-time jobs in a day, just to buy me bags and jewelry. One evening, Cruz and I passed through a dimly lit alley. At the entrance of the alley, a few drunken thugs brightened up when they saw me. Cruz held me in his arms, wanting to take me away, but was stopped by some thugs. He said lightly and frivolously, "There's a saying that goes, husband and wife are like birds of the same forest, when disaster strikes, they fly their separate ways. I just want to chat with this young lady, I won't do anything." Cruz didn't let go of my hand, shielding me beneath him, enduring the punches and kicks from the thugs. I cried and told Cruz to leave. But Cruz looked at me with determination, "I won't let go of your hand." When the police arrived, Cruz had already passed out, but was tightly holding on to me. After this incident, my parents finally acknowledged Cruz. Cruz has always been very good to me, but his gaze towards me is always incredibly clear. Even when we are lost in passion, his eyes are always remarkably calm. He would push me away and say, "Christina, there's no rush, we'll wait until we get married." At that time I didn't understand, I only felt that Cruz was a very upright and restrained person. But when I heard him speak to his friend about his past with Selena, and saw the love in his eyes. In response to his friend's inquiry, Cruz's disdainful voice reached my ears, "I haven't touched Christina. In this life, I have only one woman, and that's Selena. Christina looks very much like Selena. To make her resemble Selena even more, I had her grow her hair long and wear the clothes that Selena likes. But no matter how much she looks like Selena, I must remain loyal to Selena." The Selena he liked had long, black hair flowing down and wore a white long dress. No wonder the clothes he gives me are always light-colored long skirts. No wonder when he brushes my hair, his gaze is always filled with regret and calm. Now I understand. Cruz's affection was merely due to the similarity in the shape of my and Selena's eyes. I pushed open the private room, and when I saw them, the people present fell somewhat silent. The atmosphere was a bit stiff. Cruz looked at me, his eyes showing some impatience. I broke the awkward atmosphere and said with a smile, "I've been listening at the door for a long time, and I'm not embarrassed at all." "What are you all embarrassed about?" Hearing my words, a hint of discomfort flashed in Cruz's eyes. He opened his mouth. Seeing Cruz wanting to speak, everyone, including me, instinctively lowered our breathing sounds. The next moment, Selena pushed open the private room door, like a butterfly. She fluttered towards Cruz, who instinctively wrapped his arms around her and complained, "You're already grown up, yet still so careless. What if you fall?" Selena smiled and said, "Isn't it because you're here?" Hearing this, a smile blossomed on Cruz's face as he affectionately pinched Selena's nose. Seeing this scene, my blood felt as if it had frozen. Even though I was already prepared for the fact that Cruz did not love me. But when I see them so sweet together, my heart can't help but ache. This suffocating pain became even more intense after I discovered the dazzling ring on Selena's ring finger. This diamond ring is hailed as the true love ring that can only be customized once in a lifetime. I once saw it in Cruz's pocket. I originally thought this was what Cruz had prepared for me. But on the day we got engaged, what he took out was just a pair of plain wedding bands. When they saw this cheap ring, my parents' faces darkened. But I had no complaints, because Cruz said this was a ring he made with his own hands. I also comforted my parents by saying that this is just an engagement ring. I have already seen the wedding ring he specially designed for me. But I never expected this. This ring actually appeared on Selena's finger. I suddenly felt incredibly embarrassed. The ring on my finger burned like a branding iron, causing my fingers to ache. Now, thinking back to that joyful me from back then, I can only feel an immense sense of absurdity. As I think of this, my tears are about to overflow. At that moment, Selena saw me, and a glimmer of fragmented light flashed in her eyes. She pointed at me and asked Cruz, "Cruz, who is this girl? Is she your friend?" Hearing Selena's words, Cruz felt a bit flustered, and he instinctively denied, "No, no, not my friend." Selena asked, "If that's not your friend, then who is it?" Cruz had a bit of sweat on his forehead, and the look in his eyes was cold and accusatory. I know he blames me for being here, making it impossible for him to explain to Selena. My heart feels incredibly bitter. In the next moment, Cruz's words felt like they had plunged me into an abyss, a monstrous beast devouring me whole. Cruz said, "This is my friend's girlfriend, here to see him." The boy beside me seemed to wake from a dream and quickly responded, "Yes, yes, my girlfriend, my girlfriend." Hearing Cruz's words, I froze in place. And the warning in Cruz's eyes shattered my heart into pieces. Selena didn't see the look between Cruz and me. She tilted her head and said, "But they don't look like a couple, do they?" "Cruz, you're not lying to me, are you? The way she looks at you is a bit off." Cruz hurriedly said, "What's wrong? You're overthinking again." "Alright, how do you want them to prove it to you before you believe?" Selena smiled innocently, "Let them kiss once." I didn't say anything, just silently looked at Cruz. Cruz was silent for a moment. He said, "Alright, you two kiss." Hearing Cruz's words, my heart completely died. I took off the plain ring from my finger and threw it at Cruz. Tears could no longer be held back, falling drop by drop. I raised my hand and slapped Cruz hard. "Cruz, you bastard." After saying that, I turned and left. The night wind was chilly, and I shivered, the fog in my mind clearing up a bit. Before I knew it, I had arrived at the house that Cruz and I rented together. After being with Cruz for a year, I moved out of the school dormitory and lived with Cruz. Just because Cruz started his internship, the school has implemented a curfew. I was worried about Cruz's health, so I moved out to live with him. 3 months ago, Cruz said he was going to move back to the dormitory building at school, closer to the lab, to avoid wasting too much time on the road. I can't bear to be too far from Cruz, so I simply moved back to school. It's just that we're all very busy as graduation approaches. When you think about it, we haven't been to this house for 3 months. I originally wanted to leave, but I couldn't help but open the door. The room is very clean. It still carries a hint of the smell of fireworks. Thinking of the bits and pieces from the 3 years we spent together, my heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Then, I suddenly sensed that something was wrong. Cruz and I have moved back to the school, but this room still shows signs of someone having lived here. Looking at the women's underwear drying on the balcony, this is a style I don't like. My fingers trembled slightly, and a despairing realization surfaced in my mind. I collapsed and pulled open the bedroom door, only to find that my things had disappeared, replaced by the belongings of another girl. A photo is placed on the bedside table. It is a picture of Cruz and Selena. I collapsed to the ground, my legs giving way. It turned out that, unbeknownst to me, they had long been involved with each other, living like a pair of lovers. Looking at the used condoms in the trash can, tears dripped down to the floor. I don't know how long it had been, but Cruz appeared in the room with a weary expression. Seeing me, he asked somewhat angrily, "What are you doing here?" I scoffed and smiled. "Cruz, why can't I be here? If I weren't here, I wouldn't even know that someone had already entered the scene. If I didn't show up, I wouldn't have known that I had always been a substitute." Cruz rubbed his forehead and said helplessly, "Something happened at Selena's home. In this world, she only has me. She's not in good health, and I don't want to upset her. I hope you can understand that Selena is very important to me, and I don't want anything to happen to her. Do you know that what you did today has caused me a lot of trouble? Christina, I'm already very tired, can't you be a little more obedient? Can you not make me worry?" In the past, whenever Cruz showed this exhausted look, my heart ached terribly. But now, looking at him, I couldn't help but laugh. "Cruz, you don't want to provoke her, so you took care of her to bed? How disgusting are you too?" What answered me was a slap from Cruz. My face instantly turned red and swollen, I felt dizzy, and could barely stand. Cruz felt a bit regretful. Just as he wanted to support me, his phone rang. On the other end of the phone, Selena's cries could be heard. Selena said, "Cruz, I had a nightmare, I'm so scared, can you come pick me up?" Cruz gently comforted a few times, and then walked away. Before leaving, Cruz looked at me and said, "Christina, you leave first. I'm afraid that if Selena sees you, she will be even more upset. Once her emotions settle down a bit, I'll explain things to her properly. Will you wait for me?" I watched Cruz's departing figure and smiled silently. There won't be a future, Cruz. A week later, I boarded the plane to California. Before leaving, I deleted all the photos of Cruz, his friends, and those little moments that I cherished so much, completely and thoroughly. Life at Stanford University is busy and fulfilling. It gradually helps me forget the pain of the past. I thought I would never encounter Cruz again in this lifetime. But this world is just so small. The next time I saw Cruz was after my parents' golden wedding anniversary, in a mall near my home. When he saw me, his eyes instantly lit up, and he excitedly walked forward. "Christina." I looked at the Cruz in front of me. He was wearing a suit and had rimless glasses. No longer the youthful innocence of the past. He stood in front of me, a bit uneasy, his hands unconsciously rubbing the corners of his clothes. Just like when we first met, it's a pity that things have changed and we have already come a long way. I no longer feel the same love for him as I did before. I smiled and nodded at him. "Long time no see, Cruz." Cruz's eyes were slightly red, and he choked back tears as he wanted to hold my hand. I pulled my hand back. Seeing this, his eyes showed a hint of hurt. Cruz spoke gently, "Christina, I've been looking for you for a long time. I only know that you are in California, studying at Stanford University, but they are unwilling to tell me which college you are in, unwilling to tell me where you are. It's been 6 years, do you know how much I miss you? Hearing Cruz's words, I still felt a bit despondent. I felt sad for Christina, who was once filled with thoughts of Cruz. If Cruz were to put his mind on me, he would know which college I'm in and which campus. My friends all noticed, but I didn't see it. However, all of this is over now. I sighed and no longer looked at Cruz. I have things to do, I need to go. Cruz was anxious. He eagerly asked me, Christina, where are you going? I looked at him calmly. Suddenly, I remembered everything he said 6 years ago, and deep down, there was still some resentment. I said coldly, Cruz, we no longer have any relationship. Why are you looking for me instead of taking care of your Selena? Hearing Selena's name, Cruz's face turned pale. He wanted to argue, but before he could say anything, he saw a man appear beside me. The man skillfully wrapped his arm around my waist, holding several baby items in his hand. Seeing this scene, Cruz's pale face turned deathly white. He trembled as he spoke, Christina, who is this? I said softly, let me introduce you, this is my husband, Evan. Cruz's whole body was trembling, and he looked at me in disbelief, his eyes gradually turning red. You're lying to me, aren't you? You love me so much, how could you possibly marry someone else? You must be angry with me, you're just trying to trick me. I sighed helplessly, Cruz, do I really have to show you the marriage certificate for you to believe me? Cruz shook his head desperately. Seeing him with that look in his eyes, as if he were a heartless person, a wave of annoyance rose in my heart. I didn't want to pay any more attention to Cruz, didn't want to become the topic of gossip for others, so I grabbed Evan and was about to leave. Cruz called out to me again. His eyes were terrifyingly red, and his gaze was shattered. Christina, stop messing around, will you come back with me? Evan's expression darkened, seemingly a bit annoyed by Cruz's relentless persistence. He took a red booklet out of his pocket, opened it, and held it up in front of Cruz. It was the marriage certificate of Evan and me. Seeing the marriage certificate, Cruz's face turned even paler. He looked at me and said, Christina, didn't you love me the most? How could you marry someone else? Cruz was still unwilling to give up, he wanted to hold my hand, but Evan was tightly protecting me. Cruz hurriedly said, Christina, I've been waiting for you. You divorced him, let's live well together. We're going to get married, why are you treating me like this? Hearing Cruz's voice, I felt an overwhelming annoyance. The various past events swirl in my mind like a revolving lantern. I only feel extremely bored. Cruz seemed to have thought of something, taking out a red velvet box from his pocket and holding it up in front of me. He opened the box. Inside lay a dazzling diamond ring. Seeing this diamond ring, I suddenly remembered 6 years ago, in the house we rented. A messy bed, a wardrobe full of women's clothes, and a condom lying in the trash can. It's really disgusting. I said coldly, Cruz, don't you think you look disgusting like this? It was you who treated me as Selena's substitute, it was you who said with your own mouth that you would only love Selena in this lifetime, and even this ring appeared on Selena's hand. I am a person, my heart has been trampled by you like this, how dare you ask me why I treat you this way? Cruz looked sad. He stared at me with tears in his eyes, filled with pain. After a while, he said, Christina, I was deceived by Selena. She told me that she had a terminal illness and was about to die, so I thought about spending her remaining days with her, so that we would have no regrets between us. I really didn't mean to hurt you, everything I said was just because I was afraid those friends would tell her, so I thought I would make you suffer for a while. I looked at Cruz and suddenly realized that I had never really known him. I was surprised to find out that Cruz was such a person. Cruz wanted to say something more, but I interrupted him, I don't owe you anything, why should I suffer this injustice? Cruz, you said you would stay with her, but did you end up in her bed instead? Cruz wanted to say something more when Selena suddenly appeared beside him. After 6 years, Selena has changed a lot, there are some fine wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Her once smooth, jet black long hair is messily tied up at the back, and she is wearing loose clothing, looking haggard. She held Cruz's hand, her voice choked. Cruz. Cruz remained silent for a long time, then he lowered his head and carefully supported Selena. I laughed mockingly. Hearing my laughter, Selena looked at me, and seeing the expensive clothes and jewelry on me, a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. Then she pitifully said to me, "Miss Christina, you have everything, can you please not take Cruz away from me? It's all I have now, and my child, and I cannot leave Cruz," she said, subtly straightening her belly. It was then that I noticed her lower abdomen was prominently rounded. She was already 5 or 6 months pregnant. Seeing Selena's pregnant belly made me want to laugh even more. Cruz's head lowered even further. I feel very calm inside, but I can only find it incredibly ironic. This is the search that Cruz told me about. He still allowed Selena to be by his side. If I still loved Cruz deeply, then this encounter would only be a source of greater pain for me. Now I have Evan. I tightly held Evan's hand beside me, and Evan gently patted the back of my hand, carefully putting the marriage certificate back into his pocket. Selena's eyes were filled with an indescribable expression. She spoke again, "Miss Christina, you broke me and Cruz apart back then. Now, I kindly ask you, could you please return Cruz to me? I know you loved Cruz very much at first, but the only person Cruz loves is me." Before Selena could finish her words, Cruz, in a fit of anger and embarrassment, told her to shut up. Seeing this, Selena's expression changed. She pointed at me and shouted at Cruz, "Cruz, you're not getting back together with this mistress again, are you? Don't forget I'm still carrying your child." Everyone around stopped in their tracks upon hearing Selena's words, and some even took out their phones. I felt incredibly embarrassed, but then I thought of Evan beside me, looking at him with some concern. Once, Cruz hated standing next to me, he thought I embarrassed him. "Evan." Evan reached out and swatted Selena's hand away. In Selena's uncertain gaze, Evan calmly said, "Miss, please show a little respect. I am married to Christina, she is a very good and outstanding person, not the mistress you speak of. It's rather this gentleman beside you, who inexplicably approached and keeps bothering Christina. Also, I don't like you pointing your finger at Christina." Hearing Evan's words, my eyes felt a bit sore. Cruz looked at me with a sad expression and silently pulled Selena away. As they left, I could still hear Selena's dissatisfied complaints. After Selena and Cruz left, the people around gradually dispersed. Evan didn't say much, but instead took my hand and walked into a jewelry store. He picked out several dazzling diamond rings for me, according to my fingers. I was somewhat at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Evan huffed proudly, "Just such a tiny ring, how dare you take it out and embarrass yourself?" I asked Evan, "Do you mind?" Evan said, "What I mind shows that you are excellent and worthy of being remembered." Hearing Evan's words, I felt a warmth in my heart. I couldn't help but laugh when I remembered the marriage certificate Evan took out. I asked him why he kept the marriage certificate by his side. Evan naturally said, "Such an important thing as a marriage certificate should definitely be kept together with the ID card and bank card." I looked at Evan's handsome profile and smiled slightly. This time returning home was for my parents' golden wedding anniversary. Under the strong insistence of my parents, Evan and I took the children back to our home country. After the anniversary is over, I will return to California with Evan. Evan is an overseas Chinese, with his own job in California. I am teaching at Stanford University this year and wanted to bring my parents over, but they are unwilling to leave their homeland. Once I was a bit timid, not wanting to return to City B, not wanting to be reminded of the past. Now, seeing Cruz, I realize that I have let go of the past. Cruz didn't think so. He began to frequently appear near my house, just to find me and say a word or two. But every time Evan is by my side, he can only look at me with a mournful gaze. But soon, he no longer appeared in front of me. Because my parents' golden wedding anniversary had begun. On the golden wedding anniversary, I arrived at the banquet venue ahead of time. There weren't many guests yet, so I sat on the sofa, waiting for everyone to arrive. Selena suddenly appeared in front of me, her face twisted. What are you doing here? I asked her with a bit of amusement. Why can't I be here? Selena said, this is a gathering of the upper class in City B. Do you have an invitation? Then you can come. I was slightly taken aback. Then I smiled and shook my head. I came for my parents' golden wedding anniversary. What do I need an invitation for? Selena looked up and called the security guard, saying, how do you do your job? This person doesn't have an invitation, yet you let her in. When I was in my home country, I didn't really show my face, and over the years I have been living abroad. The security guards didn't have a strong impression of me. They politely asked, Miss, do you have an invitation? I shook my head, just about to speak. Selena's voice was sharp as she hurriedly interjected, you all saw it, she snuck in here. These are all important figures, what if something happens? Can you take on that responsibility? Hearing Selena's words, the security guard's expression changed. They politely wanted to escort me out. I said, I am the daughter of the host of this banquet, why would I need an invitation? Selena said discontentedly, you clearly snuck in here, what are you pretending for? Don't think I don't know, you were living off cruise back then, in reality, you have nothing. I smiled. When I was with Cruz, I was unemployed. But when Cruz started the project, I invested money, effort, and people, going to great lengths to help him build connections, and now it has turned into me becoming Cruz's kept woman. Just as the security guard was escorting me out, my parents appeared at the door and stopped the guard. Seeing this scene, Selena sarcastically said, oh, look, everyone big and small is here. Why does everyone like to climb up? They should see if they are worthy of it. After saying that, she cast a disdainful glance at her parents. I understood, the clothes my parents were wearing didn't show any brand, so she assumed my parents were poor. Mom and Dad's faces turned red with anger. But this time, the security guard did not listen to Selena, instead, he respectfully welcomed my parents in and apologized to me. Selena became anxious and shouted, what's going on? They're just a bunch of poor fools, can't you see? I calmly said, the ones who are blind are not them, but you. If you had just paid a little attention, you would see that the people who often appear on the financial channel are my parents. Selena, you really are blind. Hearing my words, Selena looked at her parents in disbelief. Her delicate face turned pale. After a long while, she shook her head frantically. Muttering impossible under her breath, she did not believe it. After a while, more and more guests arrived, and when they saw my parents, they greeted them warmly with smiles. Seeing this scene, Selena finally believed. Her legs went weak, and she knelt down on the ground. She pointed at me and said, it's all Christina's fault for deceiving me. Mom and Dad just found it funny and said, what did our daughter deceive you about? Hearing her parents' words, Selena was completely stunned. When Cruz arrived, Selena was kneeling on the ground, crying terribly. When he saw Selena, his eyes were filled with unease. I said calmly, you finally came. She is heavily pregnant and unwilling to get up. There's nothing we can do while she kneels here. Looking at his parents' plain and almost indifferent faces, Cruz's expression turned pale. He harshly pulled up Selena and then said in a low voice, Mr. Pay, Mrs. Pay, it's Selena who doesn't understand. You adults shouldn't hold it against a child. Dad interrupted him, saying, when you treated my daughter like that back then, we didn't go all out against you, we just thought it wasn't necessary. In the future, it's best if you don't appear in front of us again. Hearing his father's words, Cruz's face turned as pale as Selena's. The people present had already stopped paying attention to them. 2 days before I was set to return to California, Cruz asked to meet. I recalled his actions during this time, sighed, and still decided to keep the appointment. We arrived at a cafe. After just 2 months apart, Cruz looked haggard. As soon as he saw me, he said, the child in Selena's belly is not mine. I didn't say anything, and Cruz let out a bitter smile, continuing, Christina, ever since you left, I've been thinking about you a lot. I admit that I brought her to the house we rented. We were drunk at the time, which is why we made a mistake, but it was only that once. After you left, I found out she had deceived me. She told me she couldn't bear to part with me. I've been looking for you all these years, but a while ago, she suddenly found me, and we drank a lot. I made a mistake again. I looked at Cruz calmly and asked him, "What exactly do you want from me?" Not far away, Evan looked at me with concern, and my gaze followed. When our eyes met, his eyes curved, and he gave me a big smile. Seeing this, I also smiled. Cruz looked at us interacting, his eyes dimmed slightly, and after a long time, he said, "He treats you well, doesn't he?" I rested my chin on my hand, recalling the moment I met Evan, back when I had just arrived in California. When I just arrived in California, as I walked out of the airport, my wallet was stolen. Just when I was at my wit's end, it was Evan who helped me pay for the fare. He didn't suggest accompanying me, which eased my anxious heart. At a school evening event, I encountered Evan again. He was wearing a tailcoat and spotted me at once. He didn't take my money, he just asked me to buy him a cup of coffee. At that time I was heartbroken by Cruz, and I didn't exchange contact information with Evan. But Evan can appear in front of me time and time again, and the reason is none other than that Evan is my direct senior, studying under the same professor as I am. Later, we exchanged contact information. But my conversations with Evan were always about academic topics. He wasn't very warm towards me, unlike Cruz, who went to great lengths to present himself. He was like a typical straight guy. The days in a foreign land are always hard to endure. In my first year in California, my parents flew over to celebrate the New Year with me. After the festivities, they returned home as the family business became busy. I watched their figures disappear at the security check, feeling an indescribable bitterness in my heart. Just as my tears were about to fall, a steaming hot sweet potato was placed in front of me. Looking up, I saw Evan's face. Evan smiled gently. He didn't wipe away the tears from the corners of my eyes, he just took me to the planetarium and showed me the stars all night long. It was also on this day that I discovered that Evan and I had many common interests. I grew closer to Evan, and our relationship became more intimate. Evan was not in a hurry to confess his feelings to me. It wasn't until the third year in California that he realized I had let go of everything from the past. On my birthday, he took me to the planetarium and we watched the stars all night. When dawn broke, in the full morning light of the room, Evan confessed his feelings to me. Between Evan and me, it is always Evan who takes the initiative. He does not ask for anything in return, more often than not, he acts like a mentor, eagerly supporting me. I know he loves me. He also knows I love him. That's enough. By the time I came to my senses, Cruz had already left. On the table lay a bank card and a note. Above is a string of numbers, and another sentence, "I'm sorry." When Evan and I returned to the country again, it was to take my parents to California for their retirement. My parents finally relented. City B has undergone so many changes over the years and has become completely new. Evan asked me, "Do you want to stay in China?" I submitted my application to go back home. I looked at him in surprise. Evan said with a smile, "You grew up in China, and I feel like you're not very happy in California. We can spend the first half of the year in China and return to California for the second half." The sun was calling out for candied hawthorn. The person selling the candied hawthorn hurried over, but when he saw me, he suddenly lowered his head. I bought my son 2 skewers of candied hawthorn and asked him, "What should you say?" The son said in a babyish voice, "Thank you, uncle." I smiled, then placed the bank card that Cruz had given me on the stall. As I was leaving, I heard a barely audible thank you. During my time in City B, I met Selena. She was full of hyaluronic acid, rigidly following a portly boss, her face plastered with a fawning smile. She saw me too, but there was no longer the jealousy from before in her eyes, only a deep sense of helplessness. I didn't look at her again because Evan was calling me. He wanted me to take care of our son. As I walked towards them, the sunlight behind me was bright. I walked step by step out of the abyss, towards the happiness that belongs to me.